Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nikki's rescue is called to Amanda by police. According to the Young and the Restless spoilers for Monday, July 28th, Kane Ashby is worried about the danger that Lily Winters suddenly finds herself in and will call the police. Fans of Y&R can anticipate the following. Nikki Newman may also receive a last-minute rescue from a mistake. Carter will first have to deal with the series of betrayals. Carter will discover that his boss wants him imprisoned after Kane makes him feel secure enough to confess to the murder of Damian Kane. Carter will lose it and accuse Kane of setting a trap because Victor Newman and the Chancellor will be listening in on Carter's admission. Carter will decide to take drastic action once it becomes clear that there is no way out of this situation. At some point, Carter will pull out a gun and aim it at Lily's head. That'll send Kane into panic mode along with Chance, but Carter will insist on using Lily as a hostage to make his way off the property. Carter won't get very far, of course. This plot is advancing toward an exciting climax that will most likely result in Carter dying from a gunshot wound. Lily will hopefully come out of this unscathed, but Carter may join Damian when it comes to the little corpse club that's forming in Nice. It won't be long before the police take over the investigation because Amanda will get updates on all the chaos that is breaking out and call the authorities. The Chancellor deal that Amanda has been negotiating with Nikki may also be out of the question. Whether Victor stops Nikki or she sees wounded Nick on his way to the train, Nikki may pump the brakes on trading Chancellor for her son's freedom. Regardless, the Young and the Restless spoilers indicate that Nikki will explode upon learning that Nick has sustained serious injuries. Therefore, keep an eye out for her concerned reaction. It started with a whisper and ended with a roar. Amanda Sinclair had trusted her instincts before, but never had the stakes felt so high, so urgent, and so deadly. Amanda had been piecing together bits and pieces for weeks, including cryptic messages, veiled threats, and a sudden silence from Nikki Newman that was louder than any scream. When Nikki failed to show up for her charity gala, Amanda knew something was very wrong. Amanda dug deeper while the others blamed stress. A quick trip to the Newman ranch revealed more than just an empty wine glass and unanswered phone. It uncovered a trail of smeared makeup, broken jewelry, and a hint of blood smeared near the door frame. Her heart pounded as she dialed 911, her voice sharp and unwavering. "This is Amanda Sinclair. I think Nikki Newman has been taken from somewhere. Right now, I require officers at the ranch." What followed was a race against time that pulled Genoa City into a storm of secrets, betrayal, and vengeance. Nikki, bound and drugged in the wine cellar of an abandoned estate Carter had once used as a hideout, clung to fading hope. Her captor, a shadowy figure Amanda was dangerously close to identifying, underestimated the sharp legal mind that Amanda brought to bear. Amanda worked behind the scenes, coordinating with Michael Baldwin, obtaining information from reluctant informants, and even confronting Victor to demand that he not interfere with the rescue plan out of pride or control while the police moved in with tactical precision. In the meantime, Victor threatened to burn down the city to get Nikki back, raging like a lion in a cage. With logic, law, and a firm resolve, Amanda, however, kept him at bay. Amanda rode with Detective Chancellor and kept an eye on everything that was going on as the SWAT team got closer to the estate's perimeter. She refused to watch from a distance. Nikki struggled to stay awake inside, her mind hazy but her resolve unwavering. She remembered Amanda's words from weeks before, about never being powerless again. When the doors blew open, the tear gas hissed, and armed officers stormed the estate, Amanda pushed past the yellow tape and chaos, rushing into the arms of a bruised but alive Nikki. Nikki clung to her as if Amanda were her anchor to life itself. Amanda whispered, "You're safe now." But even as Nikki was carried into an ambulance and Victor roared in behind with a vengeance in his eyes that promised war, Amanda knew this wasn't over. Whoever had taken Nikki had done so for a reason, and that reason had roots in secrets older and darker than anyone dared admit. And now that Amanda had brought the truth into the light, there was no going back. Genoa City would never be the same. The aftermath of Nikki's rescue unraveled like a tangle of barbed wire, bloody, sharp, and impossible to ignore. Amanda Sinclair stood in the middle of Genoa City as the news of her harrowing ordeal broke. She was hailed as a hero but was also seen as a threat by those who wanted to keep the truth a secret. Even though Nikki was barely alive and the truth was being whispered from every dark corridor of the Newman Empire, Amanda, driven by justice and the fire in her soul, was not going to back down at this point. In the sterile hospital room where Nikki lay recovering, bruises fading but her spirit barely clinging to the edges, Amanda leaned close. "Tell me what you remember," she asked gently. Her eyes were far away, and Nikki's voice was shaking. It wasn't just Carter. Someone else was there. A female. Everything was altered by that single sentence. Amanda knew this meant the plan was bigger and more calculated, and she was already suspicious of the layers behind the kidnapping. She dug even deeper, uncovering private security reports, financial records, and surveillance footage that the Newmans had not even shared with the police. She found something, the second vehicle, parked near the estate hours before Nikki vanished. She found it in a burner rental associated with a fictitious identity that had ties to Charles. Order in Amanda's hands, the revelation exploded like a grenade. She needed proof, but every lead pointed back to twisted alliances, backroom deals, and whispered threats. She had no faith in anyone, not even the police, who suddenly slowed down. It became clear the roots of Nikki's abduction weren't just personal, they were political. Someone wanted Victor destabilized, and Nikki had always been his greatest vulnerability. When the evidence began to point directly at members of the Newman family, Amanda presented her evidence to Chancellor, only to find him torn between duty and loyalty. That's when Amanda made her boldest move. She called a press conference. If the system won't fight for Nikki, she declared in front of a sea of reporters and cameras, "I will." She laid out what she knew, cryptic enough to protect herself legally, but direct enough to shake the foundations of Genoa City. Meanwhile, Victor was erupting behind closed doors, threatening lawsuits, vendettas, and exile. But Amanda wasn't afraid of him, not anymore. She fought for Nikki, justice, and the truth. Nikki struggled privately while Amanda waged war in public. Haunted by flashbacks and riddled with shame for her perceived weakness, she pushed everyone away, including Victor, who couldn't understand why she kept screaming in her sleep. Amanda was the one who came back night after night, sitting quietly by Nikki's bed and never trying to talk to her. "Healing isn't linear," Amanda whispered one night. "You're allowed to feel broken." And Nikki let herself cry for the first time. But the night fell outside those hospital walls. Carter was still on the run. Additionally, Amanda was now in his sights. She worked late one night, so when she got home at night, the door was open. "Her files are gone." The message scrawled on her mirror, "Back off." She did not hesitate. She instead called Michael Baldwin and gave him everything, including every strand of evidence she had discovered. They brought motions. Subpoenas were issued. The time of the courtroom was set. Carter would appear in court. However, Amanda was correct in her suspicion that he would not leave quietly. Chaos reigned in the days leading up to the trial. A car bomb detonated outside Chancellor Winter's. Devon was nearly killed. Amanda was aware that it was a warning and a reminder that the stakes would increase the further she went. Amanda's purpose was brought back to her when she saw Nikki struggling to walk again and pleading with herself to recover. The trial began in a media circus. Carter, smug in an orange jumpsuit, pled not guilty. But Amanda had evidence, timelines, phone records, and Nikki's own brave testimony. She showed the jury a man who was irrational, violent, and controlled by forces that were more dangerous than he was. Carter's defense attorney attempted to spin the story by claiming that Amanda was seeking attention and that Nikki's addiction relapse rendered her unreliable. However, Amanda flipped it around. She screamed, "This isn't about who Nikki was during the closing arguments. It's about what Carter did and what this city allows when we silence the victims and protect the powerful." Audra was arrested, but she was freed on bail hours later before the verdict could be announced. She had cut a deal. She agreed to turn over documents, evidence, and testimony that implicate Carter as well as a baffling third conspirator whose name, Ashby, shocked even Amanda. At that point, everything changed. All roads now led back to Kane. In shock and heartbreak, Amanda realized that what she believed to be Nikki's justice might also result in the demise of another powerful family. She returned to Nikki's side, unsure how to tell her what came next. "There's more," Amanda whispered. "This was about more than just hurting you. It was about power. It had to do with leverage." Nikki, still healing, gripped Amanda's hand. Then finish it. And Amanda knew she would. Because the truth refused to settle. Justice was up all night. And as long as Nikki breathed, Amanda would fight until every lie was exposed, no matter who fell in the process. While Victor will be concentrating on safeguarding the empire of his family, Nikki may have a strategy for the deal between Victor and Audra Charles. Nikki absolutely adores Claire Grace Newman, but there will also be Cole Howard's death to deal with. When everyone comes back to Genoa City, they will get filled in on everything they've missed so far. Additionally, there is Holden Novak. His partnership with Kane hasn't been revealed yet. So, what does Kane have in mind for Holden's network list? As Chance Chancellor stormed through the Genoa City courthouse, his badge swinging loosely from his belt and his eyes wide with a fire that hadn't been there since his military days, when he learned that truth and loyalty don't always live in the same house, the courtroom buzzed with barely controlled chaos. Through Nikki's kidnapping, Amanda's public crusade, and Carter's smirking manipulation of the legal system, he had attempted to keep his composure, but now things were spiraling out of control. Instead of providing closure, Carter's trial had opened a Pandora's box, revealing lies and secrets that no one was prepared to confront. With Audra's deal surfacing the involvement of a mysterious third player and Amanda connecting dots that pointed to deeper conspiracies tied to both Ashby and Newman bloodlines, Chance found himself pulled in every direction, by the badge he wore, by the family he married into, and by the woman he couldn't stop thinking about despite himself, Amanda. But when Carter made his move in court, attacking an officer, seizing a weapon, and taking a young intern hostage in the middle of the courthouse lobby, everything came to a head. Chance was the only one who reacted quickly enough, drawing his weapon, giving orders, and firing a calculated shot that dropped Carter but did not kill him, by design. Chance howled, "I want him to stand trial." However, what ought to have been the conclusion was only the beginning. The repercussions were immediate. His actions were misinterpreted by the media as reckless. Victor blamed him for letting Carter get that far in the first place. Knowing full well that Carter's supporters would not rest simply because he was in custody, Amanda demanded protection. And Nikki, bruised and still haunted by every second of her captivity, watched the chaos unfold from her hospital room with increasing dread. She had believed that the difficult part was surviving, but the war was just beginning. For Nikki Newman, chaos had become the soundtrack of her recovery: sirens, headlines, whispers outside her hospital door, Victor's unrelenting fury, and now Chance's public breakdown becoming fodder for news outlets. She felt a quiet resolve, and a protective instinct she hadn't felt in years beneath all of it, though. She had observed Chance put his career, reputation, and even life at risk to bring her home. She had witnessed Amanda's ferocious fighting style even when the entire system turned against her. And she knew what had to be done. The Newmans had always operated under a veil of power and privilege, protected by Victor's ruthlessness, but this time, Nikki decided she wouldn't sit back and let others clean up the mess. She was going to safeguard those who safeguarded her. She requested a private meeting with the DA, with Amanda, with Chance himself. She said quietly, her voice still weak but determinedly firm, "We can't keep reacting. We must engage in offense." It was the first time Nikki ever publicly threw her full weight behind someone outside her family, and she chose Chance. Despite her injuries, she held her own press conference and declared that the Newman Foundation's full power and Nikki herself would be used to dismantle every legal and political shield in the city if Chance were forced out of the investigation. Amanda was silenced, or Carter received any special treatment. Her words were powerful, raw, and sincere, and they changed the game. Chance suddenly became the symbol of justice fighting corruption rather than the scapegoat. Amanda had more leverage than ever to keep pressing. And Carter, chained to a hospital bed in intensive care, now had more enemies than allies. But Nikki wasn't finished. She made a secret decision that would completely shake Victor and the Newman family as a whole. She quietly altered the bylaws of the Newman Foundation, giving full investigative and operational authority to Amanda Sinclair and Chance Chancellor in the event of her incapacitation. "If something happens to me again," she told Amanda, "you don't wait for permission. You act." Amanda, shaken and moved, attempted to persuade Nikki to back off. But Nikki's eyes, now clearer than in years, put an end to that conversation. "This isn't about protecting me," she said. It's about keeping the next me safe. I shouldn't let anyone go through what I did. If I can stop it, no. Meanwhile, Victor, sensing the shift in Nikki's tone and fearing her growing independence, started making moves behind closed doors. He summoned Michael Baldwin. He made a surveillance order. He even suggested that Chance's file would be pulled for internal review. But when Nikki found out, she confronted Victor in front of their entire board, stunning everyone. She stated, "You either support me or get out of my way." Victor, furious but speechless, walked out, and for the first time in years, Nikki stood not beside him, but in front of him. At the center of the storm, Chance worked silently, determined to live up to the faith Nikki placed in him. He looked for new leads and followed Audra's money trail, and he found a startling truth. Carter had been paid to kidnap Nikki and get information from her about a secret investment fund Victor had set up decades ago that could blow up entire industries if it was discovered. This indicated that this was not merely retaliation or power, rather, it was financial warfare, and Nikki had unknowingly been the key. Chance raced back to the hospital, arriving just as a suspicious nurse tried to inject Nikki with something unauthorized. He tackled her to the floor, and in the chaos that followed, the full scale of the plot finally became clear. Nikki was the target not for who she was, but for what she knew. And now, that knowledge made her the most dangerous person in Genoa City. Shaken but not broken, Nikki decided to go further. She gathered the press again and revealed the existence of the fund, but only just enough to scare the puppet masters out of the shadows. "You want me to be quiet," she declared. "Then I suggest you start running, because I'm done hiding." Nikki officially established a private task force under the Newman Foundation with Chance and Amanda by her side. This task force would uncover crimes, expose corruption, and safeguard victims that the police were unable or unwilling to assist. It was a declaration of war against every villain who thought Genoa City was their playground. A twinkle of pride flickered in Victor's eyes as he silently scowled at the realization that his wife had grown into a powerful individual. However, Nikki did not care about power. It was about never becoming another victim. It was about providing others with the security and hope she wished she had. And for Chance, it was redemption, a second chance not just at a career, but at purpose. As the city buzzed with whispers of what would come next, one thing was certain. Chaos might have started this war, but Nikki's protective decision was about to end it. The day after Nikki's declaration sent shockwaves through Genoa City, everything changed, and not just on the surface. Ripples of fear, strategy, and desperation surged beneath the polished marble of Newman Towers, under the pristine glass of Chancellor Winters, and behind the locked doors of boardrooms and back alleys alike. A woman of enormous power using her name for protection rather than control or dominance had ignited something the city hadn't seen in decades with Nikki's public promise of justice and protection. She was dangerous to enemies because of that alone, who preferred Victor's predictable brutality. However, Nikki wasn't Victor. Rather, she was something far more unpredictable, which made her a new target. Chance knew it. Amanda knew it. Even Victoria began to sense that the empire she was meant to inherit might soon be reshaped by her mother's vision. However, Nikki did not flinch. She held her first closed-door task force meeting from her hospital suite, ordering upgraded surveillance, consulting tech specialists from Europe, and bringing in a former FBI profiler to identify who might strike next. Her first directive? Ensured Chance protect Amanda. Investigate Carter's remaining contacts. She wanted names. She needed connections. And most of all, she wanted results. Meanwhile, Chance, though publicly exonerated, remained under constant pressure. The chief of police had privately told him that his badge was hanging by a thread, and his enemies on the force were already whispering about a rogue hero complex. But Chance didn't care. His loyalty had shifted, from the force to something bigger. He wasn't just looking out for Nikki anymore. He was helping her build something new. But not everyone cheered Nikki's transformation. Behind closed doors, Victor Newman sat with his inner circle, Michael Baldwin, Victoria, and surprisingly, Audra, who was still maneuvering for power through legal loopholes, and seethed. Victor yelled, "She's making us look weak. Public sympathy is not power. Strategy is." However, Nikki had captivated the public's imagination in a way Victor hadn't in years, as Michael acknowledged. Michael said with care, "She is the face of survival now." If you try to take that away, the entire city will turn against you. Although Victor disliked hearing it, he nonetheless heard it. He knew that if he couldn't control the narrative, he had to infiltrate it. So he quietly deployed his own operatives to keep tabs on Nikki's task force. What he didn't expect was that Nikki had already anticipated this.